breakfast at Grand Phoenix Hotel Bac Ninh, in Bac Ninh Province, Vietnam, prepared to visit the tombs of the Lý Dynasty kings. The LS Dynasty Vietnamese,
Nhà Lý,
officially Great
Cổ Việt,
from 1009 to 1054 and Great
Việt,
from 1054 to 1225, was a Vietnamese dynasty that existed from 1009 to 1225. It was established
Lý Công Uẩn,
when he overthrew the early
Lê,
dynasty. The dynasty ended when Empress Rec,
Lý Chiêu Hoàng,
then 8 years old, was pressured to abdicate the throne in favor of her husband.
Trần Cảnh,
In 1225, the dynasty lasts for 216 years. In 1226,
Trần Thủ Độ,
forced
Lý Chiêu Hoàng,
to give the throne to
Trần Cảnh, Trần Thừa,
became the regent retired emperor. The rule of
Lý,
was formally transferred to
Trần,
the former emperor,
Huệ Tông,
was forced to commit suicide at
Trần Giáo,
temple. The
Lý,
aristocrats were then massacred in 1230 by
Thủ Độ.
the dynasty ceased to exist and Tern dynasty was officially established. After the LS dynasty was toppled, some imperial members of the clan escaped to Korea and became generals of Goryeo dynasty. During
Lý Thánh Tông,
reign, the official name of the state was changed
Đại Cổ Việt,
to a name that would remain Vietnam's official name until the onset of the 19th century. Domestically, while the LS emperors were devout in their adherence to Buddhism, the influence of Confucianism from China was on the rise, with the opening of the Temple of Literature in 1070, built for the veneration of the Confucius and his disciples. 6 years later, in 1076,
Quốc Tử Giám,
was established within the same complex. Initially, the education was limited to the children of the emperor, the imperial family, as well as Mandarin and nobility, serving as Vietnam's first university institution. The first imperial examination was held in 1075 and
Lê Văn Thịnh,
became the first
Trạng Nguyên,
of Vietnam. Politically, the dynasty established an administration system based on the rule of law rather than on autocratic principles. They chose the
Đại La,
citadel as the capital, later renamed Thang Long and subsequently Hanoi. Lý dynasty held on to power in part due to their economic strength, stability and general popularity among the population, rather than by military means like previous dynasties. This set off a historical precedent for following dynasties, as prior to the Lý dynasty, most Vietnamese dynasties lasted very briefly, often fall to the state of decline following the respective dynasty founder's death. Noblemen scholars such as
Lê Văn Thịnh, Bùi Quốc Khái, Doãn Tử Tư, Đoàn Văn Khâm, Lý Đạo Thành, Ân Tổ Hiến Thành
made vast contributions culturally and politically, allowing the dynasty to flourish for 216 years. History, founding, the last emperor of the early Lý dynasty, the unpopular
Lê Long Đính,
died in 1009. His crown prince son was still very young and could not take over power from his own father. Members of the imperial court, including the official
Đào Cam Mục,
and the Buddhist monk,
Vạn Hạnh,
decided to install General
Lý Công Uẩn,
to become the new emperor,
Đại Cổ Việt,
the first ruler of the LS dynasty.
Lý Công Uẩn.
The identity of his birth father is unknown. Likewise, little is known about his maternal side except that his mother was surnamed
Phạm,
the LS clan of
Lý Công Uẩn,
adoptive father.
Lý Khánh Văn,
We approached the mausoleum of
Lý Thái Tổ,
whose son and grandson, who were also the two kings who succeeded.
Lý Thái Tổ.
They have been buried here for nearly 1,000 years. Peach blossoms, a symbol of Lunar New Year in Vietnam. The Lý dynasty kings' tombs were not built with bricks or stones, but were only covered with soil and planted with trees around them.
Lý Thái Tông.
Tong was born on July 29, 1000, died on November 3, 1054. Personal name
Lý Phật Mã.
posthumously temple named
Thái Tông.
was the second emperor of the Lý dynasty. Ruled
Đại Việt.
from 1028 to 1054, he was considered the most successive Vietnamese emperor since the 10th century. Early life
Lý Phật Mã,
was born in 1000 in
Hoa Lư,
Ninh Bình during the reign of King
Lê Hoàn,
when his father
Lý Công Uẩn,
was an official of the royal court. His mother was
Lê Thị Phất Ngân,
daughter of
Lê Hoàn,
when he was 9,
Lý Công Uẩn,
became the new ruler of
Đại Việt,
and moved the capital from
Hoa Lù,
to
Thăng Long.
the second king of the Lý dynasty. Reign. Ls Fatimah ascended the throne in 1028. At the beginning of his reign, Taitong relied mostly on his father's officers to put down an uprising by two of his brothers contesting his accession, and personally led an expedition against a third rebellious brother at Hoeles. When his rule became more secure, Taitong started to demonstrate his unconventional style of governing. He promoted one of his favorite concubines to royal status. He rejected his officials' advice and plowed the land himself during the spring plowing ceremony. The king ignored convention and promoted a favorite concubine to royal status, thereby provoking a rebellion, which he crushed. He reorganized administration on the borders and built ocean-going junks. He apparently attempted to reform the system of justice and prisons at Thang Long by placing it under the protection of the cult of a 10th century hero. He ignored the objections of his advisors and insisted on personally conducting the spring plowing ceremony. In 1039, Taitong had a serious discussion with his official about whether a good government depended upon strong personal leadership or a sophisticated institution. In the end, he accepted his official's opinion and started to reform the government. In the same year, he captured the leader Non Quan Phu of a rebellious clan in the northern mountains and publicly executed them at Thang Long, publishing an edict full of self-righteous pride and indignation. Tomb of the third king of the Lý dynasty.
Lý Thánh Tông
Was born on March 19, 1023 and died on February 1, 1072. Personal name
Lý Nhật Tôn,
Temple name
Thánh Tông,
was the third emperor of the Ls dynasty and the eighth ruler of the Vietnamese kingdom.
Đại Việt.
In his reign,
Lý Thánh Tông
promoted the agricultural development, reducing some harsh laws and building many Confucianist and Buddhist institutions, most notably the first temple of literature in Vietnam 1072. He also fought several successful wars with Compa, resulting in the expansion of Vietnamese territory to the areas which are
Quảng Bình,
province and
Quảng Trị.
province today. Chinese sources identify
Lý Nhật Tôn.
as the Viet monarch that dared to claim imperial status, which for the Chinese was a direct challenge to their view of the world that prelude to the Song Viet War in 1070s. Early life
Lý Nhật Tôn,
was the eldest son of the second emperor
Lý Phật Mã,
and Queen.
Mai Thị,
He was born on March 30th, 1023, at
Càn Đức,
Palace. Unlike his father and grandfather, he had not lived in the disturbed atmosphere of.
Hoa Lư,
He came of age witnessing and participating in the exuberance of
Lý Phật Mã,
reign. His father had readily delegated important tasks to him. He led soldiers against rebels, he judged offenders, he presided over the court in his father's absence, and he always knew that he would be king. In 1033, he was conferred crown prince after his father ascended the throne as Prince.
Khải Hoàng,
Reigned domestic, just after succession,
Lý Nhật Tôn,
and shortened the kingdom's name from
Đại Cổ Việt,
to
Đại Việt,
literally Great Viet, initiating the most prosperous epoch throughout the history of Vietnam under that name.
Lý Thánh Tông,
Incorporated both Simic and Indic elements into his court. In 1063, at 40 years old and still without a son and having visited shrines and temples throughout the kingdom to pray for an heir, he travelled to the Phap Văn Pagoda, about 30 kilometers east of.
Thăng Long,
This was among the first Buddhist temples to be built in the Red River Delta.
Thánh Tông,
Found interest on a young girl named
Kỳ Lan,
who ignored the king's hubbub while continued working on the mulberry farm, and then took her as queen. 3 years later she gave birth for Prince
Lý Càn Đức,
in 1070
Thánh Tông,
authorized the construction of
Văn Miếu,
the Temple of Literature, a scholarly shrine and archive in
Thăng Long,
that was stocked with clay statues of the Duke of Zhou and of Confucius and his followers and paintings of 72 other disciples of Confucius.
Thánh Tông,
Also relied on his chief minister
Lý Đạo Thành,
to educate his 4-year-old son
Lý Càn Đức,
in Chinese classics.
Thánh Tông,
Also reorganized the royal army, equipped them with cavalries and catapults. In 1068, Than Tong ordered the war boats to be repaired. In making plans for the Compa campaign, he relied on
Lý Thường Kiệt,
1019 to 1105, the ranking military officer at court. Foreign relations. After Nong Zhigao's rebellion was suppressed in 1055, the Guangnan West Circuit Fiscal Commissioner, Wang Honefel, 1043 to 1063, feared that Nong Zhigao's kinsman Heng Tongyan intended to plunder the region after he crossed the Song border in 1057. Wang Hon took a personal visit to Neng Tonghan's camp and spoke with Nong Zhigao's son, explaining that seeking interior dependency status would alienate them from the Vietnamese, but if they remained outside of China proper, they could safely act as loyal frontier militia. A local Song official, Zi Ju, agitated for military action against Thang Long to settle the border question. They secretly trained military units and sheltered refugees from the Vietnamese side, including army deserters. The contradiction between the pacific pronouncements of the Song court and the devious, provocative policy of local Song officials angered.
Lý Nhật Tôn,
In 1059,
Lý Nhật Tôn,
to launch a punitive attack across the border, declaring his hate for Sung's untrustworthiness. After a year or so of attacks and counterattacks, in which the local Sung officials fared poorly, a parley between Sung and Vietnamese envoys produced a temporary calm as some activist Sung officials were dismissed and the Sung court officially accepted Thang Long's explanation of events. According to the Chinese,
Lý Nhật Tôn,
violated propriety by arrogantly proclaiming himself an emperor. Because of recently violence in the borders, local Song officials went so far as to conspire with the Cam King to put pressure on the Vietnamese. A Vietnamese embassy was permitted to offer tribute to the court of Renzong in Kaifeng, arriving on the 8th of February 1063 to deliver gifts, including 9 tamed elephants. He King sent a second embassy to the Sung court in 1067 to congratulate Shenzong's coronation, and received gifts from the Sung emperor including a golden belt, silver ingots, 300 bolts of silk, 2 horses, a saddle inlaid with gold and silver plating. As Compa constantly harassed the area near the border between the two nations and sometimes intruded deeply to loot, in 1069
Lý Thánh Tông,
himself led an seaborne invasion of Compa. He defeated the Cam army, burned Vijaya, and captured the king of Compa, Rudravarman III on Khmer territories. Rudravarman III implored
Lý Thánh Tông,
to release him in exchange for 3 areas, known as
Địa Lý, Ma Linh,
and
Bố Chính,
these now form part of
Quảng Bình,
province and
Quảng Trị,
province.
Nhật Tôn,
Victorious army brought back thousands more Cam prisoners and resettled them near capital.
Thăng Long,
These captives contributed Cam music to Viet court. They included Dao Tong, a Chinese monk who had been living at the Cam court. Under the guidance of his new royal patron,
Nhật Tôn,
he established
Đại Việt,
its third
Hiền,
Buddhist sect, alongside the popular Vinataruchi sect that
Lý Công Uẩn,
had favored and the more ascetic and scholarly
Võ Ngôn Thông,
sect of
Lý Phật Mã.
the kingdom acquired a princely order that was patronized by later LS monarchs and catered to court interests, but also incorporated more cosmopolitan influences, including elements of Chinese Buddhism. Peach Blossom Garden. Grapefruit Garden. Peach blossoms are prepared for sale in the days leading up to Tet. Orange Garden. Traders come to buy peach blossoms. Go to Nguyen Pha Lan's tomb. She was the concubine of King Li Than Tong and the mother of King Li Non Tong. Vegetables are grown on the side of the road. Orange Garden. Vegetables garden and lettuce. Cabbage and lettuce. According to the wishes of King Li,
Lý Thái Tổ,
the king's mausoleum is located in the people's agricultural area.
Ỷ Lan,
Was born in 1044 and died in 1117. Or Empress Mother
Linh Nhân,
was a Vietnamese concubine and regent who effectively controlled the imperial government of Vietnam for over 40 years. A concubine of
Lý Thánh Tông,
the third emperor of the LS dynasty. She is the mother of
Lý Nhân Tông,
the fourth emperor.
Kỳ Lan,
Twice served as regent, first during the absence of her spouse from 1066 to 1068, and then as co-regent during the reign of her son from 1073 until her death in 1117. Being of commoner origin, Lan was favoured by LS Thantong because she not only gave birth to his first child, but also successfully acted the regency for him during his military campaign in Kompa. After the death of the Emperor LS Thantong, Lan conspired with General LS Thongkiat to murder the Empress Mother Thong Dijang and took over the regency, making her a controversial figure in Vietnamese history. Lan is considered one of the most important figures of the early LS era, being credited with driving the country's economic prosperity and political stability, in addition to her contributions to promoting Buddhism in Vietnam. One of the few women who held significant political power during the dynastic period of Vietnamese history, Lan has been worshipped as a goddess while streets in cities across Vietnam have been named after her. During LS Thantong's reign, according to Nguyen Bok Coatone for Vietnam, the birth year of Lan was unknown. She was born in the then yearly later changed to Sului village, now Dijang Zor commune, Jalam, Hanoi. It was said that the Emperor LS Thantong was unable to have his own child up to the age of 40. Therefore he paid visit to Buddhist pagodas all over the country to pray for a child. Naturally, the escort of LS Thantong often attracted attention of people. In 1063, the emperor passed the then Yili village where he saw a girl of commoner origin leaning on an orchid tree Vietnamese, Lan, and paid no curiosity to the escort of the emperor like others. Afterwards LS Thantong decided to choose the girl as his concubine with the title Lady Lan Phunon. On 25th of the first month in 1066, Lady Lan gave birth to LS Kangisi, the first child of LS Thantong. Right after the birth, LS Kangisi was entitled Crown Prince of the LS dynasty while Lady Lan was granted the title Imperial Concubine Nguyen Phi or Thine Phi. To celebrate the event that lifted the emperor's constraint of dying without issue, LS Thantong changed his era name from Chong Thanjakan to Long Chong Thien Ti and gave out a general amnesty for prisoners. In the second month of 1068, Lan had a second son who was later entitled Prince Min Non Vibon. In the second month of 1069, LS Thantong personally led a military campaign against the Kingdom of Kompa and left the regentship for Lan. Eng SS Leon in G Viet SBK and Tone The recounted that after an unsuccessful period of attack, the emperor wanted to abandon the campaign, but in hearing the stability of the country under the regency of the imperial concubine, LS Thantong continued to carry on his campaign. Finally, he was able to capture the King of Kompa. Grandson of King Li Thantong. Li Thantong was born in 1116 and died in 1138. Personal name LS Dijang Hon, was the fifth emperor of the LS dynasty, reigning over G Viet from 1127 to his death in 1138, becoming the ruler of G Viet at the age of 12. LS Thantong successfully maintained the order of the royal court and strengthened the stability of the country with the assistance of capable officials. For that reason, G Viet under LS Thantong was able to witness a peaceful period like during the reign of his predecessors. However, LS Thantong died at age 20 before passing the throne to his crown prince LS Thien T. Early years. LS Dijang Hon was born in the summer of 1116 as LS Dijang Hon to Lady G and the Marquis of Sung Hien Vietnamese. Sung Hien Hai, who was son of the Emperor LS Thantong and younger brother of the Emperor LS Non Tong. According to the history book, LS Dijang Hon was born right after the death of the monk Thioichin, one of the most important figures of the early LS dynasty, which implied that LS Dijang Hon might be the incarnation of Thioichin. At that time, the Emperor LS Non Tong was unable to have his own child, and thus he decided to adopt sons of the Marquises Sung Hien, Than Can, Than Quang, Than Chu, Than Aching, so that the emperor could choose a capable successor to maintain the throne for the LS dynasty. Finally, being an intelligent and vivacious boy, LS Dijang Hon was made by LS Thantong the crown prince of the LS dynasty at the age of 2 in 1117. In December 1127, Ls Non Tong died at Văn Quan Palace and was succeeded by the Crown Prince Lst Giang Hong, now Ls Thine Tong, immediately after the coronation. Thine Tong began to regulate the royal court and the royal family in order to keep the stability of the Ls dynasty in the wake of Non Tong's death. This action of Ls Thine Tong was criticized by contemporary historians La Van Hu and Eng Ss Leon, who thought that Ls Thine Tong should have been in mourning for his predecessor for a longer period to show his respect for the departed emperor. As emperor, after the enthronement, Ls Thine Tong changed the era name to Thien Thun 1128 to 1132 and made his adoptive mother Lady Turn and the empress mother of the Ls dynasty. During the reign, the emperor changed the era name one more time to Thien Chong Bo T 1133 to 1138. Although he had been not long on the Ls throne, Ls Thine Tong at once made several major changes in the royal court, such as relaxing strict laws, appointing officials for important positions, and maintaining diplomatic relations with the Song dynasty and the Kingdom of Kompa. At that time, the Viet's borders were fairly stable except for some skirmishes with the Khmer ruler Suryavarman II, starting in 1128, 75 to 76 and Kompa, which were driven out by the Ls army without difficulty. Besides the emperor, the victory over Kompa was also attributed to the protection of the Buddhist and Taoist deities, an opinion that the historian La Van Hu did not agree with, since the historian thought that the victory in battlefield was solely due to the ability of the commander. In the first month of 1129, the emperor bestowed his real father and mother Marquis Sun Hyan and Lady Jithao on titles the retired emperor Tai Thong Hong and the empress mother Hong Tai, who of the Ls dynasty. The decision of Ls Thine Tong was met with criticism from La Van Hu because of its unorthodoxy according to the feudal tradition in which the emperor should accept only one origin. In this case was the late Ls Non Tong and his empress. La Van Hu, together with Eng Ss Leon, again criticized Ls Thine Tong for his order in the first month of 1130 that every daughter of the mandarins in the royal court had to be available for the emperor's selection of concubines, and ones who were not chosen could only get married afterwards, because of the young age of the emperor. Eng Ss Leon and La Van Hu often pointed their criticisms to Ls Thine Tong's officials, who were considered by the historians lacking ability and being flatterers. However, Ls Thine Tong was later considered in the Viet SBK and Tong for a skilled ruler who was able to choose and use talented officials and hold the stability of the Ls dynasty. On the other hand, the modern historian Tern Trun Kim wrote in his Viet Nam SB Lien C that Viet was able to witness a peaceful era during the reign of Ls Thine Tong thanks to some capable mandarins such as Trong Boang Si, Liu Kinkam and Di Jiang An No, and the policy of Ngor Bin Ji Neng, which meant conscripting farmers into the army for a period of 6 months, and release them for the remaining 6 months so that they could resume their farming work, and thus the agriculture of the country was not affected by military activities. In 1136, Ls Thine Tong contracted a severe disease that his physicians could not cure, so a monk named Nguyen Min Kang stepped up and helped the emperor survive his disease and recover. There was a legend said that Nguyen Min Kang learned the disease's antidote of disease from his master Thio Chen before he died. Nevertheless, Ls Thine Tong survived for only 2 years. He died on the 26th day of the 9th month of 1138 at the age of 23 and was succeeded by Ls Anna Tong. Ka Temple, the Five-Dragon Gate, formal Buddhist name Si Phap Yen, is a temple near Hanoi of which the central section was built in 1028 on the death of Ls Tai Ti, and the complex enlarged as 7 of his descendant Ls dynasty emperors were also buried at the shrine. Ls Bat Gien means 8 Ls emperors. Traditionally, the shrine serves for ancestor worship of the 8 emperors. It is located in Hunbeng Commune, TSN district, in the Red River Delta province of BSC Ning. Another national monument, Hunbeng Communal House, is adjacent. Li Tai to born March 8, 974, died March 31, 1028. Personal name Ls Kangan, temple name Tai Ti, was a founding emperor of LS dynasty and the sixth ruler of Viet. He reigned from 1009 to 1028. LS Kang'un was born in Sifat village, Hunbeng, Tsn, BSC Ninh province in 974. The identity of his birth father is unknown. Likewise, little is known about his maternal side except that his mother was surnamed Pham. According to the Vietnamese Chronicle, his mother gave him up for adoption to a man named LS Canvan at the age of 3. The LS clan of LS Kang'un's adoptive father LS Canvan was a Vietic Dai Chue clan that originated from the highland regions in Phung district. Kang'un was educated by Vien Chin, the most eminent Buddhist patriarch of the time, in the village of Hunban, a short distance across the Red River from Hanoi to the northeast. He acquired a reputation as a devout Buddhist, and then a historian student and a soldier. He was gradually promoted from a minor official to a prominent post of the government and was ultimately bestowed with the title, the Commander of the Palace's Left Flank, which was one of the most important positions within the royal guards. In 1005, the ruling Emperor Lahone died, resulting in a civil war between his sons. LS Kang'un began serving at the royal court, eventually rising to a high position of trust at the side of the designated heir to the throne. In 1009, the ruling Emperor Longhun 1005 to 1009, the last emperor of the La family, developed hemorrhoids and had to lie down while listening to officials' reports. Incapacitated by declining health, Longhun watched helplessly as the monks of Zhao launched a propaganda campaign that nurtured belief in the inevitability of LS Kang'un becoming king. He died in November 1009 under the wrath of the people because of his brutality and cruelty during his reign. How Kam Misi, an royal official, and Patriarch Vien Chin seized the opportunity and imposed their power and political influence to enthrone their trusted disciple LS Kang'un without much resistance. Thus ended the reign of the La dynasty. 2 days after Longhin's death, advised and assisted by his patron, the monk Vien Chin, and by the efforts of the entire Buddhist establishment, LS Kang'un was proclaimed emperor by general acclamation. After his ascension to the throne, LS Kang'un named his Irathun Thean, meaning accordance with heaven's will. Edict on the transfer of the capital. In the old times, under Pan Zheng of the Shang dynasty, the capital had been transferred for 5 times. Under King Cheng of Zhou, the capital had been transferred for 3 times. It was not for personal benefits that the kings moved the capital. They did so in order to pursue great causes, choosing the central place, making it favorable for future generations to thrive. That was in respect to the mandate of heaven and in accordance with the commons, moving to a place to ensure the eternal existence of the nation and the richness of customs. But now the Hin and the La disregarded the heavenly mandate and did not follow the examples of the Shang and Zhou, just fixing the capital here, which causes the shortness of the nation, the people's depletion and the discord of the universe. We are very painful and now thinking of transferring the capital. Moreover, Jila Citadel, the former capital of King Gao, is in the very heart of the universe. The position evoked that of soaring dragon and stalking tiger in the center of the 4 directions, convenient for the development of the nation. This area is large and flat, high and bright. The population are not suffering from floods and darkness. Everything is in full prosperity. After investigating all lands of Viet, this place is actually the gathering venue of people from across the nation, the most appropriate place for eternal capital positioning. We want to take the most advantage from placing the capital here. What do you think, the court mandarins? The half-moon Lake Hban Nu Yacht, so called because of its half-moon shape. At the front of the half-moon-shaped lake stands a pavilion called 3 Hun built into the lake, which today hosts water puppet plays and Quan H singing. Capital relocation. The royal court decided to relocate from Ho LS to the site of Jila modern-day Hanoi in the next year, 1010, Jilor was known as the city that the Tung General Gaupian had built in the 860s after the ravages of the Nanzhao War in 1010. Ls Kang Un published an edict explaining why he moved his capital to Dailor. Ls Kang Un chose the site because it had been an earlier capital in the rich Red River Delta. He saw Jilor as a place between heaven and earth where the coiling dragon and the crouching tiger lie, and his capital would last 10,000 years. When Ls Kang Un's boat docked at the new capital, a dragon, symbol of sovereign authority, reportedly soared above his head. He accordingly renamed the place Thang Long, the Ascending Dragon. The royal city at Thang Long was laid out in the standard pattern. The urban centre encompassed the royal city. The throne room palace was located within a dragon courtyard and faced south. The crown prince of the Ls dynasty lived in the eastern palace outside the city walls. Palaces and offices were constructed of timber. Kanyeon Palace, where the king held audience, was located on the Neng Hill. By 1010, 11 palaces were built in Thang Long. The earthworks, which were ramparts of the new capital, still stand to the west of the modern city of Hanoi, forming a vast quadrilateral by the side of the road to Snt. When a severe earthquake occurred in 1016, Ls Taiti prayed to the gods that were in charge of the mountains surrounding the capital, while also sending more than 1,000 people to teach in Buddhist schools. He journeyed around his kingdom both to propitiate its disparate genies and co-opt them by having them declare themselves to him. Religious activities. Having begun life as a Buddhist monk, Ls Taiti practiced Buddhism and promoted it as the national religion. As a result, he gave much support to the Buddhist clergy and institutions. He donated money to build pagodas throughout Viet. Initially, he built 8 Buddhist temples in the Cheondu area, heartland of Vietnamese Buddhism, and 3 others around the capital region itself. Consistent with his geo-administrative vision and his kinship to appease and tame the spirit world, during the 11th century, the Ls court brought back to Thang Long a firmament of local spirits that had long dominated more distant regions of the kingdom. The spirits of the Trying Sisters from the western delta, the earth genie of Pha Hung north of the capital, and the mountain of bronze drum god from Than Hoe No to the south were all relocated to the capital and housed there in temples specially dedicated to them. If these spirits were symbols of regional powers, their pacification involved the extension of monarchical authority to the regions of Viet. In 1024, a temple was built for Ls Taiti to use for reading and reciting the Buddhist scriptures, a copy of which he had requested and received from the Song court a few years earlier. After establishing suitable relationships with the terrestrial powers, he showed an interest in establishing proper relationships with the supernatural powers, patronizing the Buddhist religion and local cults, thereby cultivating a cultural basis for his authority. Thereafter, he began to withdraw from public affairs. In 1025, Vientian died. He had been Ls Taiti's teacher, mentor, and, to some extent, father figure. He had previously been an advisor to Lahone and was a central figure in effecting the transition from the La family at Ho Ls to the Ls family at Thang Long. It seems that Ls Taiti's royal personality was in some degree animated as an extension of Vientian's expectations of him, for from this time little of note is recorded about Ls Taiti until his death in the spring of 1028. Ls Kang Un died in 1028 at the age of 55 according to the royal official accounts. He was buried at Thalang, the mausoleum of longevity, outside of Thian Gc Palace. He was posthumously named as Ls Taiti. His posthumous imperial title was Thien Vien Hong Jian. Today the ancestor spirit of Ls Taiti is among those popularly honored in rites at national shrines. Main hall and side halls. The main hall of the shrine is used for the worship of the Ls emperors. The Vancho hall at the right of the main hall is used for the worship of Ls Chiothan and Tihinthen, to high-ranking civil mandarin officers who serve the Ls dynasty. The Viencha hall at the left of main hall is dedicated to the worship of famous generals Ls Thon Kiat, Lufang Hire and Hao Kam Mi Si. Reigns of the 8 emperors are as follows. LS Kang Un, namely LS Tai T 1009 to 1028, LS Tai Tong 1028 to 1054, LS Than Tong 1054 to 1072, LS Non Tong 1070 to 1128, LS Thine Tong 1128 to 1138, LS Anatong 1138 to 1175, LS Cao Tong 1175 to 1210, LS Hu Tong 1210 to 1224. Kang Un himself was born in 970 for C in Sifap region, BSC Jeong Circuit, now in TSN, BSC Ninh Province, Vietnam. When he was 3 years old, Kang Un was adopted by LS Can Văn, whose surname Kang Un inherited. The good-looking and intelligent Kang Un was noted as an extraordinary child by Buddhist Zen master Vianachan. When mature, he joined the palace guard and rose through the ranks to commandership. In 1009, Kang Un succeeded La Long Hun of the La family, thereby founding the LS dynasty. In 1217, the 8th king of the Li dynasty, Emperor LS Hu Tong, suffered a serious illness and became mentally ill. He occasionally called himself the Heaven General and would dance all day long holding his sword and shield. By this time, most of the court matters are managed by Chancellor Tern Tikan and not by the Emperor anymore. The court power base gradually switched to the Tern clan. In 1223, the Chancellor Tern Tikan died. Tern Thea replaced his position and was given even more privileges from the Emperor. Abdication of LS Chu Hong. Emperor Hu Tong did not have a son as heir. Captain Tern Thurji Ternth was cousin then decided the Emperor's second daughter, Princess Chu Than, will be crowned as Queen of Ji Viet. In 1224, Hu Tong abdicated and gave the throne to the crowned princess. LS Chu Hong, at 6 years old, became the first reigning Queen of Vietnam. Tern Thurji took on his hand all the daily handling of the LS court. He brought his nephew Tern Sieng, the second son of Tern Thea, to become the confidant of young queen. Both of them then had blossomed closed relationship. In aim to overthrow the rule of LS dynasty, Tern Thurji arranged their marriage in the next year. Tern Sieng later became the consort of LS dynasty.